Okay, what's up, guys, from the wrestling community? Um, Last night I did a video on my top 10 favorite tag team wrestlers. Today I'll be making a quick video of who I think are the top 5 best WCW World Champions. These top 5 that I've picked, some are my favorite. I've picked these guys because some of them are my favorites, but I also picked them because of the prestige that they've brought to the WCW Championship, as well as their reign as WCW champion. You know, their run as the world champion. So starting for number 5 on my list is best WCW champion, which some of you guys may agree with or may not, is DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. Diamond Dallas Page was before The Rock was, DDP was the People's Champ, before The Rock. A lot of people may dispute over that, but if you look at your history, look at the time The Rock came out, and then the time when DDP was already out, they were calling Diamond Dallas Page the People's Champ. So, should be no discrepancy about that. But anyway, the reason I put DDP on here, because I like DDP. I thought DDP was one of those guys that deserved, I think, to be the world champion. Despite how he's been there for a while. I just thought it was just his time to become a WCW champion. Although his reign wasn't really that great, I thought he was a good champion. He was someone that fans could get behind. Fans loved him. So that's number 5. Number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list is Bill Goldberg. A lot of people call Goldberg a flash in the pan. Yes, he was in WCW for about 3.5 to maybe 4 years. But when Goldberg was hot, Goldberg was on fire. I mean, this guy was very popular. He had the look. He had the power. Yes, his matches were, 2-minute squashes. But you know what? Everyone in the 90s didn't care. You didn't think like that. You guys, we loved it. We loved when Goldberg would just go on the ring and smash somebody and snap them in half with a spear and then take him down with a jackhammer. And then when he beat Hogan on Monday Nitro for the WCW Championship, it's like, holy hell, like, okay, this guy was already unstoppable before, but now that he's the world champ, everybody's gunning for him. It's like, who's going to beat Goldberg? And Goldberg, I think, had a 3 or 4 month reign as WCW champion. I thought it was a really good reign, especially for someone, who's just coming down the pipe, with a 18-month undefeated streak. This is absolutely phenomenal stuff. So Goldberg is number 4 on my list as best WCW champion. Number 3 as best WCW champion on my list is the man himself, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And a lot of you guys may agree or disagree with this, but the reason why I picked Hulk Hogan is because as soon as Hulk Hogan came in WCW back in 94, he was immediately the face of the WCW, hands down. There's no argument. You can't dispute that. Regardless of all the other big stars and baby faces in WCW, Hulk Hogan was probably the number 1 baby face in that company, hands down. And even when he started the NWO, although yes, he cheated a lot, and he cheated, and he did this and that with the NWO, and like I said, he really never won a fair, clean fight in the NWO. But if you look at the WCW Championship, the history of the championship in WCW, most of the title matches involve Hulk Hogan in it, hands down. Hulk Hogan is a 6-time WCW champion, and I don't think maybe probably brought as much prestige to the WCW belt as some other wrestlers as the other 2 wrestlers I'm about to name on my list. But I do think having Hogan as the number 1 guy, and as the WCW champion, I thought it was a good thing. He was the leader of the NWO. This amazing faction was taking over the WCW, and he needed that world title, that prop, to, I guess, lead his men in the battle. You know what I mean? It's like the Holy Grail. So number 3 on my list is Hulk Hogan. Number 2 on my list for best WCW champion one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is the Icon Sting. Sting is another guy, who was just charismatic, back in his Beach Boy days, fighting guys like Ric Flair and, the Great Muta, Rick Rude. I mean, Sting, I have to say, before Hogan came in WCW, Sting was the babyface of that company before Hogan came in. And even after Hogan came, Sting was still the face of the company. He just brought so much prestige, I thought, to the WCW Championship and what it was. If you make a list of some of the best WCW champions of all time, you have to put Sting on your list. If you do not have Sting on your list as one of the best WCW champions of all time, something's wrong with you. Seriously. So Sting is number 2 on my list. And number 1 on my list is the best WCW champion of all time. I'm not a big fan of his. I like his character. I think he's a very comedic character. He's very funny, but I was never a fan of, say, his wrestling skills or anything like that. And that's the Nature Boy himself, Ric Flair. Ric Flair is just a legend. He really is. Although, some of the stuff he's done in TNA, it's kind of like, when are you going to lace up the boots? It's kind of like he's tarnishing his legacy a little bit, I think, in my opinion. But Ric Flair is one of the best WCW champions of all time. When you think of the WCW Championship, which is now currently known as the World Title on WWE SmackDown, when you think about that big gold belt, the first person that comes to your mind is the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Ric Flair was the first guy to have worn that belt and brought that belt into the professional wrestling business. He was the first guy to bring that design, that big gold belt, into the wrestling business. Ric Flair won that belt more than any other wrestler, and hands down, I think he may have won it maybe 7 to 8 times. So he's won that belt more than anybody. And although I know Edge won the world title 8 times, but still, I'm speaking for Ric Flair. That belt and Ric Flair, the WCW Championship and Ric Flair go fit like a hand in glove. Like I said, when you think of Flair, you think of the WCW or World Heavyweight Title. You think of the WCW Championship. When you think of the WCW Championship, you think of Ric Flair. Like I said, Ric Flair goes back on that belt, since I think AWA days. I think when he was part of the AWA, that was the first time I think the WCW World Championship was introduced to Ric Flair, and Ric Flair was its first title holder. And even when he left, and even when he went to WCW, and WCW was kind of treating him bogus or whatever, he went to WWE back in in the early 90s, 91, 92, and brought the WCW Championship belt with him on television. So that was just another great historical moment, because Ric Flair just really brought a world title from one company and legitimately brought it with him to another rival promotion. That's never been done before. Just innovative stuff. And like I said, Ric Flair just had so many great matches, with that title on the line, whether it was against Vader or Sting. I'm trying to think of someone else. Sting, Vader, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. That's the name I'm looking for. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I think he even fought, what's his name? The Drain, Dusty Rhodes, for the WCW Championship once. I know they fought many times for the NWA World Title, but I think they fought, maybe once or twice too, for the WCW Championship, and I think one of those matches was never ever televised before. So yeah, so this is just my list of who I think are top 5 best WCW champions. Like I said, I think it's an okay list. I tried to, think of some guys, who really brought prestige to the title belt, but this is just my little quick list. Stay tuned, because I will be making a list of who I think are the top 10 best WWE champions in history. Thanks.